Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, in this video, we're still going to be talking about the warmer weather we're going to see middle to the end of the week. In fact, you're looking here at temperatures on Thanksgiving, and if you are anywhere outside of the northeastern part of the United States, we do have a little bit of a warm-up that's coming in through here. But these warm-ups are going to be brief in duration, given the flow pattern that we're going to be watching here over at least the next 15, maybe even 20 days. In terms of precipitation, most of the week is going to be relatively calm. We have one system moving through the Ohio River Valley, a second one coming through the Great Lakes, a third that's kind of coming in through Texas, and then finally, and thankfully, some stronger onshore flow out west, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But as the active pattern ensues, by the time we get into next weekend, things are really going to change for the eastern two-thirds of the country. We're going to finish this up with a look at the longer range update coming out of South America as well. So let's dig right into it. This is just kind of neat, something I'm going to show you. When you look at this satellite animation from Sunday, you can see there are a couple of snow swaths that we can see through the clear skies. But I want you to pay attention to this one right here as I click play. What you see here is the warmer conditions already coming into parts of Nebraska, and as a result, we're starting to melt some of that snow. And so we do have this brief warm-up coming this week, but it is brief, and I'll show you why here in a few minutes. Quickly, look here at our short-range forecast. We're going to use our high-resolution NAM model to see this one. First system to watch can be going through southern Illinois, southern Missouri, all the way up into the northeast, really bringing some precipitation in here into parts of the Ohio River Valley. We will watch a little clipper that sneaks into the Great Lakes and some lighter snow that's going to be piling up here. Toward the end of it, watch what we see coming into California and Oregon. So let's go ahead and animate this one forward. Let's just go ahead and click play. There you can see the snow and the rain moving through parts of the Ohio River Valley in the day on Monday. By the time we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, it's really going to be a feature that's going to move some of that snow through the Great Lakes. So we just kind of whip it back here real quick. There it is. This is now early Monday morning. See it spreading there into parts of Ohio, getting up in Pennsylvania. This is getting us to midday on Monday. We can see most of that spread on off to the north and east with some showers and storms still down there in Louisiana, Texas. We've got the lighter snow in the Great Lakes, the lighter snow in the northern plains. And by the time we get through the day on Tuesday, there's our little system that's kind of clipping through the Great Lakes there, giving us maybe a chance at some lake effect snow. And as I said at the very end, we've got that onshore flow out west finally setting things up to bring in some much needed rain and snow to the Pacific Northwest. So with that, I want to show you how things look Thursday morning. You see, by that time, we have this area of higher atmospheric pressure that's really settled in here over the northeast, keeping things very, very cold. But look at the return flow. This will be the brief warm-up here on some southerly winds into the middle part of the country. And also look at this. The winds are coming strongly off the ocean here into the western part of the United States, and that is the exact opposite direction they were going a week ago, which is what was fueling those fires. So very, very happy to see things shifting, giving us some onshore flow out west. Okay, now before we move into this forecast, I just want to show you what the temperature anomalies have looked like through the first 17 days of the month. We have favored overall a jet stream pattern that has done this. And in the middle part of the country, we've had some locations here that are between 5 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit colder than average. But look at this on a global scale. Here's your last 30 days of temperature anomalies. And what we've got here, very cold air in North America, the eastern half of North America, and basically in the northern hemisphere, that's really the only spot that's been much colder than average outside of this region right in through here. Now, what's important to look at is what pattern got us set up like that, and what is that pattern going to do moving forward. Now, just like with the stock market, where we look at indexes to kind of give us a clue at the overall performance of the stock market, we like to do this in atmospheric sciences as well. But instead, we're here looking at flow patterns. So I've got the Pacific North American pattern on top and the Arctic Oscillation on bottom. Now, what is the Pacific North American pattern? Let's look at the trough ridge system across North America. The Arctic Oscillation tells us about the polar vortex. Okay, we can see that the P&A is heading positive, while the Arctic Oscillation is heading negative. We need to know what that means, because if this is the overall kind of performance of the atmosphere, we need to see what this kind of correlates to. So on top, for the month of November, looking historically, what does the Pacific North American Pattern Index tell us? Well, it tends to tell us that when the pattern goes positive, it is warm here and cool there. And that's because the jet stream tends to want to do this. Now, what about the Arctic Oscillation? Well, when the Arctic Oscillation is positive, it tends to be warm across the eastern part of the country. But our Arctic Oscillation right now is going negative. So that means look for the opposite of what you've got here, which means it would be getting cool in this area and warm over there in the western United States and western North America. So with that, let's take a look at what's going on one step above. Now remember in last video we were talking about that big Scandinavian ridge that was developing. Well, what is it going to do? It's going to push here toward the North Pole and elongate the polar vortex. See it like that? And as that happens, that tends to allow ridging here and overall a trough pattern sweeping across the eastern half of the country. So this is our pattern setup moving forward, and let's now diagnose it by looking here at troughs and ridges from the European model and its ensemble. To get things started, this is what the flow pattern is going to be on Monday. And this is the overall trough feature that will be moving toward the west coast with time, thankfully, and finally bringing in that moisture. This ridge progresses to the east, and we're going to see this trough really set up shop here over the northeast temporarily, but let's see what happens as we animate forward. So let's get rid of the drawings, and here we go. I've stopped it here by the time we get into Wednesday. This is early Wednesday morning, and now we're progressing into Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. Now look at what the flow of the atmosphere is going to do. Trough, ridge, trough. So we got the cooler weather here in the northeast. We have the onshore flow out west and the return of warmth in the middle part of the country. We've been talking about this for quite some time, but that warm up is short-lived. Look at this. By the time I get into Thursday night and then into the day on Friday, here we are Friday around noon, we see our first of two trough features moving across the country. This one's going to create a storm system that's going to go racing up the east coast like this. And we have this second one kind of loading up here in the Pacific Northwest that is going to dig deep into the middle part of the country and give us our next big weather system. So quieter week ahead as we lead into the holiday, but after that, well, things are going to be changing quite a bit. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Progressing forward, look, first trough swinging through the lower Mississippi River Valley Friday night, such that by Saturday it's now kicked off a low that's going up the east coast. Now look over there in parts of Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. We have Saturday morning that trough digging down into the Four Corners coming into Texas. And as that happens by Sunday, this is also going to kick off a low somewhere in this area that's going to go racing on off to the northeast as well. So this is the active pattern that settles in. Now, let me get rid of these drawings and show you where we go into the next week. You see what the model wants to do here? It wants to favor this Aleutian trough, this ridge over the west United States, and this broader trough over the east. That is the positive P&A pattern. And if you look up here kind of between Greenland and the Hudson Bay, see in this region the anomalously higher heights associated with this 500 millibar pattern. That is what's displacing and elongating the polar vortex, hence the negative phase of the Arctic Oscillation. That's why I was telling you about that. So if that's the pattern we settle into, look, I'll just keep stretching this out. Here we are, day 10. Now we're getting way out here, all the way out to the day 15 pattern. And you can see it really hangs on to that same feature. So I think that as we stretch this out and get ourselves all the way into the beginning of December, if there are any warm-ups that we will see coming in the forecast, they're going to be very short-lived. All right, let's now see what this means in terms of our temperature pattern. As we kind of play this forward, let's just get again to about the time we get into the day on Thursday, so Thanksgiving. Bitterly cold air here, still tucked away in the northeast as that ridge finally progresses in and the warmer air arrives for the end of the week for the middle part of the country. So this is now Friday at noon. So there's the warmer weather that we're going to get toward the end of the week. But notice, remember I told you a couple of troughs digging in to start next weekend? Watch this. As they come in, there's the colder air settling back into place in the middle part of the country, again giving us the very active weather pattern. So this is playing out very nicely, quite a bit of good model consistency here. To take a look at precipitation, remember we're starting off the week watching the first system go through here and a little clipper that's going to come sneaking through the Great Lakes area and some lighter snow here in the northern part of the country. So let's kind of get us through that part of the forecast. Watch it again. So there it is, sliding through. So that's relatively quiet, though. That's a relatively quiet pattern to get things going. Now, by the time we get into that all-important travel day on Wednesday, here it is. This is Wednesday at noon. Other than the northeast, the far northeast here, and the onshore flow out west, things are relatively quiet across the country. And I'll tell you, there's not going to be a single soul out here in the west that's going to be unhappy with the wetter weather that we're getting, because that's finally going to help us with the fire threat out west. Okay, so let's now move this into Thanksgiving. What do we see? The ridge now moves here to the northeast. That's going to be very, very cold weather in the northeast. But look at the windy conditions stretched across the middle part of the country. Well, that's return flow out of the Gulf of Mexico, warm conditions moving there, but with that warmth, that's also going to be moisture transport. And you watch this. By the time we get past Thanksgiving, as that trough digs in, here we are Friday night, Saturday morning, that's system number 1. Where's system number 2? You can see it brewing there in the Intermountain West Saturday around noon. A lot of snow there, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. System number 2 emerges by the time we get Saturday night to Sunday morning. And that is what happens when troughs dig into the middle part of the country. Big low pressure system going there across the country. Now, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty. I've got you all the way out the 198-hour forecast. We're out into next Monday. But this is just the bigger picture. What does that trough do? It gives us unsettled weather. So that's it. That's why we are taking a look at that pattern, and as it sets itself up with that positive PNA, negative NAO, this is what we'd expect to see. All right, let's now get ourselves down into South America. Just look at this. I want you to stay focused here on Argentina. Over the last week, we have seen some major storms in Argentina that in some locations have again dropped over 10 inches of rainfall. We can also see the Brazilian monsoon is set up and going just fine. So after a drier start to the season, parts of Argentina have been very, very wet, causing some localized flooding. Now, to help you understand what's going on in Brazil, I want you to take a look at the position of the Madden-Julian oscillation. Now, for simplicity's sake here, what I want you to remember is this. The Madden-Julian oscillation is going to be going through phase 5 into 6, 7, and 8, just like this. Now, phase 6 is typically a warmer pattern for North America. Hence, for a little while there, we're going to see a warm up here as we get into the middle part of this week. But getting into phases 7 and 8 take us back to that colder regime. But what we need to focus on here is South America. Now, look at this. We're going to start off at the analysis and move through a 15-day forecast. And we see here that once we get beyond the next couple of days, look at northern Brazil. We move into a time period where we have stronger upper level divergence. And the only reason why that happens this time of year is due to convection, thunderstorms. And we can see that over the next 15 days, much of Brazil's growing regions are going to be favoring wetter than average conditions. And that's why when we look at the longer term forecast by the European model, we see major wet anomalies for much of Brazil. Now, so far, if we look over the last 45 days, so that's what these maps over here on the right show us, we are not hurting for precipitation in Brazil's major growing regions. And so early in the season, we are seeing decent moisture in Brazil. We've been talking about that quite a bit. And even though a drier pattern is forecast for Argentina, remember, some regions through here just got slammed with major heavy rainfall events, causing some problems, and I think going to be forcing some people to replant. So things starting off decent in Brazil, and then transitioning possibly a little drier than average in parts of Argentina. Longer term, we will see this wetter pattern that you see right here in Brazil, I think slowly calming down as we move into the month of December, but certainly over the next 15 days looking quite wet. So that's your global perspective, and with that, I'm going to wrap up this forecast video. We hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming out later on this week. In the meantime, head to Agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Look forward to giving you another update very soon.